Hey, what's up? It's Chef. It's been a while since I've done a video, and it is Semiconductor Saturdays. All right, well, just as a reminder, like, subscribe, and hit the like button so hard that this thing gets exploded to the far reaches of the ends of the universe, so I can get the word out there, and it'll help the channel a lot, and you won't regret it, I think. Well, I don't know, maybe. Who knows? Whatever. Uh, it is um, Saturday, October 2nd, 2021, and I wanted to get started on the chip shortage today. So you're going to be hearing about the chip shortage, it looks like, until 2023. Um, yeah, or 2022, it depends on who you ask. But the chip shortage is not going away anytime soon. The demand is just so high. It skyrocketed after the pandemic started, and specifically affecting the high end chip uh, industry, specifically the 12 nanometer chips and 14 nanometer chips, and it's just going to keep getting worse and worse for anything that uses those chips, specifically cars, right? And that's why you hear about this in terms of the car industry. The car industry actually is suffering quite a bit, and has been doing so because essentially car makers have not planned for the semiconductor shortage, right? Because I mean, and this is the layperson's way of explaining this, the semiconductor shortage um, really started uh, in cars. It really started affecting things in industries where you don't really have electronics as the forefront of the application. Like in cars, the uh, semiconductors, the chips, they're all on the dashboards, they're all in the display, right? I mean, they're all over the car really, but like mostly in the display. And all the displays are digital electronic these days. All the control knobs are digital electronic, right? It's just always a screen to interact with. There's a lot of computer parts and computational equipment in the car. There's sensors in the vehicle. But again, most people think about a car, they drive a car. So whoever didn't think about that beforehand and um, caused the car industry to be vulnerable to this is, I mean, they really have to figure out why this is the case. I did see this interesting article about by Tom Forminsky, who's I believe he's a semiconductor analyst, and he's been so for many years. He had put out he put out this article on ZDNet, and it had an interesting piece about how the semiconductor industry um, this happens. These markets, the semiconductor boom bust market, happens every 4 to 5 years and has been going on for as long as microchips have been being used, and the semiconductor process has been being used to fabricate these microchips. And really, um, the big thing is that the industry never learns, right? They swear, they vow up and down that they will improve, and that the next year that or the next time this happens, they won't be caught off guard. But apparently, their analysts and whatnot, generally speaking, never really are able to get a handle of the situation, and this is the current situation now. I did see another article about how some industries, like the smartphone industry, planned ahead a bit, right? Well, that makes sense because smartphones are definitely, they're one of the more obvious technologies that need a lot of semiconducting, a lot of microchips, a lot of microprocessing. They're getting better and better every year, and they're getting they're getting smaller and smaller chips, and so on and so forth. So as long as we use silicon chips, smartphones will be on top of the game. But even the smartphone industry is going to suffer, and really, one of the reasons it's going to suffer. I mean, they've all it's been their application processors are very heavily transistor dense, right? And that's really one of the big issues, right? And even the smartphone industry's pre-planning could not make up for the shortage of chips that were needed for the application processors. And I believe, I think now smartphone makers who are requesting chips are only getting 70% of the supply that they've requested. So it's pretty bad. I think Apple owns its own Fab Labs, I believe. I don't know all the details of that. I will find it out, but they seem to apparently are the most resilient to this situation, and they will keep pumping out expensive and ever increasingly expensive smartphones that people hipsters will buy constantly. So what can you do? Apple may become dominant as a consequence, and many technological shifts will occur as a consequence, I believe, of the semiconductor crisis, as they call it. And there's a lot going on because, people see are. It says here smartphone sales are riding out the global chip shortage, but I see issues of that being not the case. I see like signs of that being and articles of that being not the case. And global chip shortage is creating a new problem, more fake components. So, people are trying to fill that demand because the demand is there with fake and probably impure and lower power components, right? So what is a fake component, right? Counterfeit semiconductors. Now, I haven't really read into this too much, but that could be a lot of things, right? So counterfeit semiconductor could be something that isn't actually a high-end semiconductor, but it still does some of the function. It still has some of the computational function, but there would be a noticed performance decrease and a noticed compatibility decrease between different interconnected components. And then they could be just completely fake semiconductors with a mix of real so remember, like a chip has multiple layers of semiconducting material on it, right? And now it would be, I think, really getting a fake component get through the QC process, right? QA process is, I think, going to be very difficult, but apparently it's happening. And if you ever find yourself with a phone that just doesn't turn on, look and make sure apparently that you don't have a cardboard processor inside. I don't know. That's all I could tell you. But somewhere along the line, even the faking of these chips, right, has to be complex. If it's one of those hybrid fakings that are trying to get past the any sort of the quality control system that we have, the federal quality control system. So yeah. So I guess basically maybe the fake semiconductors get paid for, and no one knows who injected them into the supply chain. Right at the end of the day, but people will, where there is a source for money, people will be there regardless of how. Um, okay, so that's it for today. Next week, this was a quick rundown. Next week I will have a better prepared presentation about the semiconductor crisis and all the different angles we can think about and talk about to help circumvent that crisis, or help ride out that crisis on our own personal ends. I mean, if it's going to go till 2023, that's a whiles yet. If we have to wait until then we have to figure out how we can do things like extend the life of the existing phones that we have. Maybe stockpile a few necessary things like chargers and things like that. Yeah, that's a start. I don't know. But anyway, see you later.